of artillery ammunition, but to achieve the greatest effect on the battlefield, it should focus on supplying this type of extended range munition. As Russia's air terror continues, we also urgently need additional interceptors this winter, including air defense systems and both surface-to-air and air-launched guided missiles for NASAMS, IRIS-T, and F-16 platforms. In September alone, they launched over 5,600 strike drones and more than 180 missiles, targeting our civilian infrastructure and people. Therefore, on the eve of winter, it is very critical to provide us with necessary equipment to repel such attacks. I would also like to add a few words on our overall defense needs for 2026. We estimate them at $120 billion. Ukraine will cover half, 60 billion, from our national resources. We are asking partners to join us in covering the other half. The most effective path to meet this need is for our European and non-European partners to dedicate no less than 0.25% of their GDP to military support for Ukraine. If the $60 billion target is out of reach for Europe, for non-European partners, then the only remaining solution is a loan backed by frozen Russian assets, so it can be used to fund Ukraine's armed forces and their requirements. Why does this matter for all of us? Because together we are moving toward a new European defense architecture, and Ukraine's army today is the most experienced and capable in Europe. The technologies we are developing now, drones, interceptors, long-range strike systems, will strengthen Europe's resilience for decades. Colleagues, it would be a mistake to believe that peace is already near. The war continues every day in our strikes, and to each of you for your personal efforts, for your contributions of your nations, for our mutual unity, for strengthening of our nations in face of this aggression. Let us act together with resolve and without delay. Thank you so much. Slava Ukraini. Thank you.
Pete, you have it.
Thank you. Well, colleagues, Secretary General Rutte, ministers of defense, might I suggest ministers of war, from around the world, we gather at a very important moment. Over the past few months, European investment in defense for Ukraine has increased significantly. Now, of course, the United States will do our part, but Europeans must continue to take primary responsibility for the conventional defense of the continent. Now, as we have before, we're going to continue to constructively remind our allies of all of our Article 3 obligations. Article 3 of NATO states, by means of continuous and effective self-help and mutual aid, allies will maintain and develop their individual and collective capacity to resist armed attack. Today, and thanks to President Trump's efforts since the first term, we are seeing in real time allies taking this obligation seriously, including in Ukraine. A key mechanism to forge peace in Ukraine, as has been mentioned, is NATO's Priority Ukraine Requirements List, or PEARL, funding initiative. For those watching and not familiar, PEARL is how we supply weapons to Ukraine. Basically, Europe pays, the U.S. provides NATO fields. The best equipment in the world from the United States to Ukraine, paid for by European allies. General Grinkowicz, our Supreme Allied Commander, the right guy at the right time, validates the assistance Ukraine requests through the PEARL initiative, and then our team within the War Department assesses those requests. It's a rigorous process, and so far has been effective. As a result, NATO allies have committed more than $2 billion in security assistance to Ukraine through the NATO PEARL initiative since August. Now, allies often say that Ukraine's security is synonymous with European security. Well, now then, therefore, is the time for all NATO countries to turn words into action in the form of PEARL investments. All countries around this table, no free riders. And I certainly appreciate Secretary Rutte's leadership in this important effort, and all the nations today that we've heard step up. Many more commitments just today to that PEARL initiative, which sends an incredible signal to the world about the commitment. I want to commend allies such as Germany, and Poland for their efforts in meeting their 5% commitment, which is being invested in fielding combat-credible forces. I could name a lot of other countries as well, the Baltics and Nordics, that have done likewise, and we are grateful. All countries need to translate goals into guns, commitments into capabilities, and pledges into power. That's all that matters, hard power. It's the only thing belligerents actually respect. Your continued investment and leadership are vital to helping Ukraine defend itself and to bring an end to this conflict. Peace through strength. Now, Europe's political leaders have also endorsed military planning for the coalition of the willing by establishing an operational headquarters and committing personnel to that multinational force. Should a peace arrangement be reached, European leaders are sending a clear message to Russia. Now is the time to end this tragic war, stop the needless bloodshed, and come to the peace table. Now, if this war does not end, if there is no path to peace in the short term, then the United States, along with our allies, will take the steps necessary to impose costs on Russia for its continued aggression. If we must take this step, the U.S. War Department stands ready to do our part in ways that only the United States can do. We remain clear-eyed about the fact that the most effective deterrents to Russian aggression are, number one, a lethal, capable, and European-led NATO, and number two, a combat-credible Ukrainian military able to defend itself and thereby continue to deter Russian aggression along NATO's border. Again, peace through strength. Under President Trump's steadfast leadership, and in particular with our European allies, we're going to bring an end to the war in Ukraine. The war must end. Like we saw him do in Gaza and in the Middle East, President Trump knows how to forge peace, to create opportunities in situations, in scenarios where peace seems far off. He and he alone has the ability to do that. This is not a war that started on President Trump's watch, but it will end on his watch. So let us seize this moment, strongly forge peace in Ukraine, and let's bring peace through strength. Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you, dear Secretary of State Healy, Minister Pistorius, Secretary of War Hexet, Minister Schmihal, dear colleagues. Welcome back to NATO headquarters here in Brussels. And John and Boris, thank you again for your leadership. Since its inception, the UDCG has been the backbone of our collective support for Ukraine. This body and the equipment it delivers to the battlefield are a clear demonstration of the international community's support for Ukraine. I've discussed with Secretary Healy and Minister Pistorius how NATO can best help the UDCG, and NATO staff will provide all necessary support. We will assist across the board, from hosting meetings such as this one to providing the best data and analysis available. And together with Ukraine, the UK, Germany, and with your support, we will make the UDCG more effective at delivering what Ukraine needs. So I look forward to working with all of you to ensure our support for Ukraine is as predictable and as impactful as possible. And we all have a role to play here. NATO allies have committed to increase our defense spending and support to Ukraine, and we know that the support to Ukraine itself, by the way, will count to that defense spending. And I'm particularly focused here on Pearl. Secretary Hexet was also speaking about it, and others. Because this is the mechanism that supplies US weapons, both lethal and non-lethal, to Ukraine, paid for by NATO allies. And I hope we can announce further significant contributions today, building on the successful meeting of defense ministers this morning. I want to commend President Trump's leadership here. He has been clear-eyed from day one when he came into office that he wants to end this war. He has been successful in Gaza. It was really staggering what happened this week and the week before under his leadership. And I want to thank you, Pete, for the leadership you are providing from the Pentagon to make all of this possible and to support this program. It is really critical. In getting Ukraine the weapons, it really needs quickly and at scale. It will enable Ukraine to protect its people and hold the front line And again, I'm so happy for the US to keep that supply going and for the allies that have contributed in the financial sense. Ultimately, strengthening Ukraine today and putting them in the best possible negotiating position tomorrow, let's hope that that day comes soon, that they will sit at one table. This is all in our collective interest. And the outcome of this war will therefore impact us all, be it directly or indirectly, whether we like it or not. So please do all that you can. Thank you. Slava Ukraini.
So thank you, ministers. Thank you, Secretary General. May I now ask the press to leave the room, please.